Kathy Christoph, and I co-chair the Electronic Technology Committee with Louise Robbins. And we had some helpers from the committee on this session. We have John Helgeson and Millard Sussman and Carol. Are you here? There's Carol over there. We kind of worked in collaboration with our presenter to figure out a topic that we hope you'll all enjoy and be interested in and learn from today. So our presenter is John Martin from the Division of Information Technology, or DoIT, on campus. John is part of the Academic Technology Department, and he does a lot of interesting things in working with students and faculty on technology and teaching and learning. And he's told me he's going to tell all of us more about what he does in specific. So, John, welcome.
All right. Thank you, Kathy, and to the committee for inviting me, and I'm happy to be here. And let me start off by saying, how many of you remember when this first showed up on your computer screens? Back in 1997 or 98 is when I first noticed it. And it was a simple little thing that was like, I wonder what this is going to be about. I'm going to talk about what it has become. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is John Martin, and I work for DoIT Academic Technology. I currently run these active teaching labs, and I left some brochures on the front. You don't have to go to these, but I just wanted you to know about them. I work with faculty every week, 2 sessions a week, and what we do is we say, hey, come in and tell us about your experiences using technology to teach better. And as you know, technology is now everywhere. You cannot not teach with technology. So we get to talk about some really cool teaching and learning issues, and it's great because faculty share their experiences, what works with the instructors or the students, and what doesn't work. And it's this fantastic, honest discussion every week, twice a week, about all kinds of how to teach better with technology things. They also let me teach a course in the bottom left corner here to graduate students on how to teach. Now, you may know that graduate students have less and less opportunity to actually teach classes. So a lot of them go through their entire graduate career and they want to go teach, but they've not had any teaching experience. This gives them the opportunity to think about what would it be like if I taught a course. So we have them design a course, and they use a Canvas is our learning management system. So again, all electronic, all the readings for the course are up there, the syllabus is up there, all of these things, and they talk about activities. I want to do this on week 1, I'm going to do this on week 2, etc. So I help them do that as well. The point of this introduction is to say, I'm a technologist and I do teaching and learning, but I would never call myself an expert on teaching and learning. I think I used to call myself an expert on teaching and learning and technology, but the technology has just gone up so fast, and you'll probably, if you haven't already noticed, you will at the end of the semester, at the end of the session. So let me talk about this handout, this other handout that I have. It's the Google Tools for UWR. All right, so this is not like your standard paper handout. There's a digital version of it as well, and this is becoming more and more common in the classroom. If you go up to that yellow there, you can access this, and you can do this now if you brought your device, if you're really ambitious, and follow along with it. Or you can take this home, type in that URL into your computer or browser, and you'll get access to this. It is fully editable, so you can go in and mess it up all you want. It has version history, so if you do mess it up, I can go in and say undo, undo, and go to a version before you messed it up. At the very bottom of this, and you see it's longer than 2 pages, right? So the paper handout, I've just saved a lot of 4 pages of printing on my color printer there, right? And you can access all of this. The links here that you see, you can click them all you want, and they won't work. But in the digital copy, they will. And that's what makes these handouts so amazing. It's not just a finite thing that the students take with them. they can access this on their device and go click on any one of those links that you see in here and get more information from them. On the bottom, if you'd like, Kathy will be typing in questions that we have, and over the break, we'll try to go back and think about which ones can we address quickly and answer. So if you want to ask any questions on the device on your own, feel free to go in there and edit that. But otherwise, it'll be a live document for much longer than this session. We'll look back on it next week, so if things come up as you're exploring and you have questions, type it in, and we'll go in and we'll add a link to it to try to answer the questions that you have for it. All right, back to the slides. You all remember that? I'm going to do one more thing here. There's that. Put that on that screen. Now I've got my lovely two-screen thing here. I'm being really transparent about this. I've got another thing going on right now, so I can read what I'm going to say. But you don't have to see this. I'll do one more thing here. Full screen. It's just like PowerPoint, but a little bit fancier and maybe a little bit more awkward. So let me tell you about my story with technology, and I think that you might see that there are touch points in it that you've also encountered. Back in 1980, my family bought an Apple IIe computer. How many of you had an Apple IIe or some sort of thing? Wasn't that cool? For the first time, we could go do things on the computer. We were part of technology. We were part of the cutting edge, but there it was in our living room or dining room in our case. And we had 2 floppy drives, and I would switch disks with my friends. Back before the internet, it was called SneakerNet, because we'd put our sneakers on and trade disks with each other. And I played Oregon Trail, and I played Joust, and some other things that I don't remember anymore, actually. And I did some basic programming in Apple Basic and made terrible programs. When I went to college, we had a VAX computer at the university, UW-Eau Claire. And it was complicated. I didn't know how to use it. It was way more complicated and serious than my Apple IIe. But it was still interesting. In the basement of our dormitory, we had a scary-looking room called the computer room, and you had to check out a key in order to get to it. And there was a Honeywell terminal that was connected to a modem, and then I had to call up the lower part of campus and connect to the VAX, and through that I can telnet and FTP and connect with other people. Mostly I just used Usenet and learned a few things about the world, but so much about the world. It was like much more than I knew existed before. We got a computer lab in our dormitory, and I got the opportunity to run it. They were networked together, so computers automatically talking to each other. And one of them had a modem, so I could go back out of the network and talk to the rest of the world. But again, this was pre-internet, pre-Google, and so there wasn't really that much of the world to talk to. Mostly, again, it was the Usenet groups and things like that. I got a job on campus supporting computers, not with the hardware stuff, but I worked for the Computing and Networking Service as a technical writer. And there I wrote fantastic things. You all remember these big boxes that used to come with software? And they were like this thick, and they had 8 books in them that were all this thick, and it explained how to use Microsoft Word. Have you bought software lately? It never comes with those anymore. It's all, you figure it out yourself. And they've made things easier so that people can figure out themselves. But we've also changed. We're braver, right? We don't need directions as much. We know that I can just go in and hit some buttons, and I'm not going to blow up Pittsburgh when I did initial training, there was always somebody who was like, I don't know about this mouse. I don't want to touch it, because what if I press the wrong button? So I wrote small, relatively short computer guides like the CNS guide to the IBM PC and compatibles. Look, this is like Aldus PageMaker, Microsoft Word, WordPerfect. Instead of all of those books, it was just the few things you needed to know. And we updated it every year, so this is the next version of the software that we included. In 1990, WhiskNet grew big enough that we needed to write about it. Things were changing. And I wrote the university's guide to WhiskNet, 50 pages, and the Internet Resource Guide, 150 pages. So in these 200 pages, it was everything you needed to know about the Internet, basically. Mosaic has like a page or a paragraph in this one because we were pretty convinced that it wouldn't last. We were pretty convinced that, oh, it was too slow because it has graphics and you needed to dial up, remember the modem, sound that everything make. It never loaded. It loaded so slow. So we're like, yes, we should include it, but let's not spend a lot of time on it. Life was kind of simple then, and the search for information was this grand expedition, and if you found it, you know, it was like an oasis in the desert, and we craved after the information. Can you think of the metaphor that we would use now for information? It's kind of the opposite of that. I'm working on the new guide to the internet. This is the beginning of the first chapter. In 1994, Yahoo came along, and they started to organize the internet into like everything that you wanted to know about: art and business and economy, computers and the internet, education. You could go in and you could find it, and they had organized it and curated it for you. And in 1995, Alta Vista came out, and Alta Vista let you just search. They didn't even try to organize it, which is probably good. Information then started to become something that was rare and precious and turned into something that was really accessible. We didn't have to rely on the libraries as much anymore. We could just start to turn to these things. But it wasn't beautiful, and it wasn't as easy to navigate. In the library, you've got a professional librarian who can help you figure out what the good is and what the bad is, and we used to talk about how do you do search terms so that you don't get junk information. I kind of feel like we've almost given up on that because you hit submit or search and you get all kinds of stuff. And it's up to you to sort through all of that on your own. And then in 1997, Google came out. Now notice on that page, you can sign up for monthly updates. Every month they would send you something about what has changed in Google. I get those. They don't come every month anymore. This is last week, and this is just for a subset of tools. And each one of these, every day there's 8 things on Monday, 7 things on Tuesday. Wednesday they must have been feeling lazy. But each one of those links to a page that talks about all of the changes that they've made for that particular tool. And it's impossible to keep up with. So here we are now, in an age of information that is impossible. It's impossible. We cannot keep up with the flow of information. And it's up to us to try to figure out, or to just, the only other option is to, hide, walk away, go to higher ground. But even that it's difficult to keep away from this. So, these are now the number of apps that I found that are made by Google just for their Android devices. And I will tell you up front that this is different from when they first came out with one thing. I have not even begun to explore all of these. Every once in a while, I find one that I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I will download now on my phone mostly just Google apps because of the ecosystem that Google has. I know that if I download an app and it's a Google app, whether it's on my phone or my computer or my tablet, or somebody else's computer that I'm borrowing, I can access my information. And that's kind of the magical thing about Google, much more so than how many apps there are or what the apps are and what they let you do. It's the fact that they're connected and I can access them from anywhere. So that's kind of a neat thing. Suffice to say, Google tools for your life, we're not going to talk about this. We can't. 2 hours is not enough time. 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 years is not enough time. And by the time you start to figure it out, they change. And let me just spend one more moment on this. The learning management system at UW-Madison right now, we're using Canvas. Before Canvas, we had Moodle, we had Desire to Learn, and they would change that every year. They would update it. Unless there was a security update, then they might wait until the semester. But once or twice a year, they would update that. Right now, for the thing that has the student readings and the syllabus and all of these things that are contained on there, their activities, their quizzes, their tests, they put out changes every 3 weeks. So we barely get a chance to learn it, and then they change it. So for instructors, for faculty, they can go in, the next time they go in, it's a little bit different. And it's frustrating. And that's once every 3 weeks. Google changes things every day, multiple times a day. And they do A/B testing. So what might work one way for you, where the button is over here and it's blue, it might be different for you where the button is over here and it's green. So explaining to you how it works kind of varies on whether you're an A or a B, and they don't tell you which one you are. So there's a lot of just sort of exploring and figuring it out on your own. And that's sort of a big takeaway. Instead of preparing with those manuals that we had before and reading the manuals to figure out how to do things, now you just go in and you press the button, whether it's blue or whether it's green, and you figure it out. So Google changed, I submit to you, that Google has changed the way that we live. And whether it directly and traumatically affects us, or whether it indirectly and only affects us as an aside, sort of depends on how far we jump into it. Leaving aside all value judgments on whether it's good or bad, and Google is a big evil empire, or whether they are a small, well, they're not small, you can't leave that aside. Or whether they're doing good. Do no evil was one of their initial mottos. Let's leave that aside for now and just talk about how can we live in this? How do we survive this? So Google changed the way that we live. It changed the way that we connect to each other. First with email. I'm getting ahead of myself. Connect, the way that we create, and the way that we learn. So connect. First with email. How many of you have Gmail accounts? Okay. That's quite a few. Do you use it every day? Once a week? Once a month? There's a lot in there, and if you do connect to it, there are a lot of advantages and opportunities that you might have. If you don't, you're probably fine as well. So don't feel like you need to go jump onto the Google train. In fact, I will not ever say go jump on the Google train. But with Google search, we can connect to more information. With Google phones, the Android operating system, they followed Apple's lead and made it very affordable, relatively, to connect with other people and information. Because I have this phone here, but I will tell you that the thing that I use it for the least is making phone calls. Most of the time I text on it, I check my mail, I do other things. Every once in a while, I'll get a phone call, and I'll be very suspicious about answering it, because when I do answer it, it's, "We've been trying to get a hold of you about your car extended warranty," or "We've been trying to get a hold of you about your loan," or some other spam call. So I hardly ever even answer this as a phone anymore. Do any of you get spam phone calls? Yeah? So Dustin does back? Good. Yeah. But the nice thing about this is it's always, or can always be with us, because we no longer need that VAX mainframe that we have to dial in with that modem at such a slow speed to be able to get the information that we want. We can access it almost all the time and anywhere that we are. When we need the information, it's there. Google also changed the way that we create. So I've got it as an example here, a Google Doc, and you can see that on the side here. Let's see if I can do this. You've got comments, and we've got suggestions here where somebody says, "Oh, let's capitalize that A," and down here somebody else has said, "Let's make sure that new partners may only be elected instead of can be elected." So these documents become collaborative. There are currently, it looks like, Brigitta, Julie, and Mike Chang are working on this document together. I use this all the time. I use it for writing collaborative articles with people. I use it on the the activity sheets that I create for the active teaching labs. We've got several people working on them. I leave them open just as I'm leaving this one open at bit.ly Google Tools UWRA, and the capitalization is important, so that you can go in and edit these right away. What does that do? That allows me to be a lot more responsive. It's not a one and done thing. It changes how I see the world, how I create information, because it's not just coming from my mind. People can jump in and say, "You know, from my perspective, this word works better," or "You should rephrase it that way." And then I can go back in and I say, "Oh yeah, that works a lot better. I've always had this thing where I do it this way, but I need to learn to get outside of myself and do it other ways as well." So bringing in other voices into the documents, I found, almost always makes the documents way better. Google changed the way that we learn. In that initial Google search, you could type something in and you would get it. There's a couple of things that are different right now. They've got books, anything and everything, news, video, images, maps, shopping, flights, finance, personal. There's Google Scholar. If you don't have a library account anymore and you want to look up an article, you can oftentimes find it on Google Scholar, or find out where to find a copy of it on Google Scholar. You can say, "Oh, I just want to see the stuff from any time," or "I want to see the stuff from the last year because I only want relevant recent stuff." Do I want all results, or do I want a certain subset of results? And this is even the simple search. There's a more advanced search there as well that you can get to. And the predictive on the lower side. You start typing something in, and it'll say, "Are you looking for this? Are you looking for this? Are you looking for this?" And sometimes it's hilarious what they think you might be looking for. That's a game in and of itself. But it's like Goo Goo Dolls. Are you looking for Goo Goo Dolls? Yes, maybe. I don't know. Google knows more than I do what I'm looking for. It's kind of an amazing thing, but it, again, changes the way that we think about information. So when I was a kid, I remember we lived on a farm, and we had a pond, and that pond was half a mile away or a quarter mile away or so from our house. And I remember going out and exploring the pond, and I saw this weed or something. I don't remember exactly what it is anymore, but it was so cool looking that I wanted to figure out what it was. And so I grabbed a leaf, and I brought it home, and I waited until Saturday, and I waited until Sunday, and I waited until Monday, and I brought it into school, and we lived in a small town, and the school library wasn't open on Mondays, it was only open on Tuesdays, so I waited until Tuesday, and finally it was library time, and I had lost the leaf. And probably lost interest at that point anyway, because new things happen. We can immediately look these things up right now. Of course, this would have been ruined because it would have gotten wet in the pond, but next year they're coming out with waterproof ones. It changed the way that we learn. We can learn right away. We can figure things out automatically and immediately when they're still really interested. How many of you use YouTube to learn things? It's kind of every subject, every topic, they have things. It's kind of amazing. You can use YouTube to learn how to search. Use YouTube. How many of you know somebody who plays Minecraft? A grandchild, young person. It's like the biggest game in the world now, except maybe Fortnite is now taking over. But they spend hours and hours watching YouTube videos to learn how to play these games better. They're just watching videos of people playing games and saying, well, that's kind of cool. And it is kind of cool. And if you think about the idea of a social interaction, a lot of it can be, how do you do this thing? Versus how do I do this thing? What are your solutions versus what are my solutions? Can I learn from you? YouTube is like 8 gajillion videos on, this is how I do it. My Honda Odyssey sliding door broke, so I added that one. I was thinking maybe I could fix it myself. I can't. So obviously this is going to show up in the classroom now. And it's going to show up in the attitudes of the students that we see at the university all the time. We are no longer sitting in a large lecture hall listening to one person spout out their opinions and facts and all of the knowledge you need to know about the internet from this book that I wrote. That information is out there online, and it is far more relevant and up-to-date and personalized for your consumption than anything that I could give you, anything that the person in the front can give you, except how to use these things. And even that might be a little bit up for grabs right now, because there's a lot of information out there, but a lot of it is terrible information, and how do I use this information is sort of the most important question now. And that's where instructors are still going to be in the front of the room. Or on the image at the right, they're holding the microphone and they're directing the action in the classroom. But the action in the classroom are students working with each other, students looking things up online, Googling them, looking for YouTube videos, connecting with each other via a Google Doc. So that Google document that we're talking about here, this is cool. This is one of my favorite things as far as teaching and learning goes. If you're a student taking notes, you try to take as many notes as you can, but you always miss things, or you mishear things, or you don't quite understand things. With Google Docs, you can have you and your 2 friends taking notes together, sitting at different parts of the room, Millard might hear something that I didn't hear, but since we're on the same document, it's there and we're able to capture it. We can capture all kinds of stuff on a single Google Doc, use it for studying, because I've got built-in study partners now because they were all there and they all contributed to this. And you hear so much more, and you have people to help you understand and explore it. It's the social learning that's happening over on the side here. So there's a lot of information, and there's a lot out there, and we're not talking about the whole internet. We're just talking about Google at this point. And actually, we're not even going to be talking about all of Google. We're just going to be talking about a few things. How do you navigate all of that? Does anyone besides me feel that it's overwhelming sometimes? How do we do it? All right, so one of the things I want to show you today is just a few of my sort of top tips for navigating and surviving. And I will say the first thing you need to do is, this is the UW Retiree Association, so how many of you know your net ID? Do you remember that? Do you still use your WISC email address? All right, here's the news. Everybody with a wisc.edu email address has a Google account. So remember, I started off by saying, how many of you have a Google account? And some of you raised your hands. You all do. I might have actually said, how many of you have a Gmail account? And that is actually wrong because the university uses a different email system. So I'm introducing more complexity right away, sorry. You don't have a university Gmail account, but you do have a university Google account. So that ecosystem that I was talking about, where you can access all of the different things with your Google account, which is your wisc.edu account, is there, but you can't access email with it because they've turned that off. How do you get there? We have instructions here for you to follow along with, but also I'm going to demo a few things. And as I'm demoing things, think about what questions you might want me to dig into. And in the second half of this, we are going to dig into some of those questions as much as I can in a way that is applicable to as many people as possible. So if any questions come up, bring it on. All right. This is my Google Drive. And I want to start with Google Drive because Google Drive is the storage area. It's like the filing system of all of the Google documents and the Google slides. And it can be all of your photos. Are my photos listed here? No, you can get to it from there. I think of this as the hub. Whenever I go into any of my Google accounts, I almost always now start at drive.google.com. So let me get over there. I'll close that out, and I'll just open up a new tab. And sure enough, my new tab is Google. And I'll type in drive.google.com, and as I type it in, you can see that it automatically fills it out for me. So all I have to do is type in drive. I think that's awesome, because otherwise I'd be like, is it uppercase? Is it lowercase? Where's the hyphen? Is it the forward slash or the backslash? All of these things, it makes simpler. Oh, I'm going to do one other thing here. I'm going to show you. I'm going to change my system preferences to mirror now. There, that makes it a lot easier. Because now I don't have to do this to drive, I can do this to drive, and it should mimic that. Oh, I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to make this a lot bigger. Not that one. That's a little bit easier to see. All right, so here I am in my Google Drive. I just went to drive.google, and it automatically signed me in because I've got my cookies enabled, so they're able to track me and they know who I am. I use that all the time to make my life easier. This is my Wisconsin account. How do I know this is my Wisconsin account? It's my Wisc.edu account because up in the top corner it says Wisconsin. Easy, right? And up here, I've got a profile picture. It's my professional profile picture of me looking professional. Down below, I've got my personal Gmail account. That one actually also looks like an Employee of the Month picture, but I've altered it, and it glitches out every once in a while. If you watch it, you'll see a glitch. There it went. So if it were full size, you'd see ones and zeros, and it's a fun computer joke. But that's my fun account, my fun profile picture. And I know that when my professional account is up, I'm in my Wisc.edu account. And when I switch over to my personal account, there's my fun picture that glitches out. And I've got different things. And sometimes when people share things with me, I can't find them. And if I can't find them on the first try, what I do is I switch accounts, because maybe they gave it to me on my personal account instead of my professional account. But I do try to keep those accounts, my work-related one and my personal one, separate. Now, why am I telling you about your Wisc account? You don't work for UW-Madison anymore, right? Congratulations. But because of the free Google account, you have unlimited storage. So all of the photos that you have in your entire life, you can load up there and you don't have to pay a monthly fee. And that's impressive. With a lot of other photo services, you have to pay a monthly fee, and then you run out because you uploaded one more, and now you've got to go you've got to upgrade and pay more every month in order to keep things going. UW-Madison has your back on this one, unlimited. Their lawyers have looked over the contract with Google, and they've approved it. So if that offers you some sense of safety and security, which it may or may not, then that's a good thing. And we have a question.
Do you have the same access with the regular Google account?
The question is, yes, I remembered. Do you have the same access as a regular Google account as you do with your Wisc.edu account? The answer is yes, except for Gmail. Gmail is disabled because the university says we're using Outlook, Office 365, Microsoft Office 365, and we don't want people to use Gmail because that'll be confusing, because then we'll have Gmail and Office talking to each other. So other than that, yes, in fact, you have more things, because the G Suite like a hotel suite, or G as in Google, lets the enterprise folks, education and enterprise edition, have access to tools that your personal accounts do not have access to. Now remember that slide that had 8,000 different apps on it? Some of those, like Jamboard is one of those. Jamboard is like an interactive whiteboard. You can buy this $3,000 whiteboard and have all of your students use a version of it here while you use a full-size version of it here. It's not catching on. I think it's not going to last, but they let education people try it and have it for free. So basically the same. All right. So I have all of my personal home-related stuff on this one, and I have on my Wisc account, I have currently all of my work-related things. And that top row, these guys here, these are all documents that are my most recent documents. So if I'm working on this thing all the time, like Google Tools for Retirement and my slideshow, my course that I'm teaching next year, I can access those very quickly, very easily. And this is maybe the biggest thing that I can sort of tell you to make life easier in Google. Remember how Yahoo organized things and they curated things, and if you clicked on this, you could go into education, and then under the education heading, you would find topics about education. And if you think about your file system, on your personal computer might look like this, where you have folders and you have documents and you've listed them and you've organized them. And in many ways, that's great because that makes sense to you, right? And if you're a really good filing person and you use the best practices ever, somebody who knows you can open it up and look at it, and it'll make sense to them as well. But, as with many of our filing systems, they don't make sense to other people. I learn your filing system. I might learn your filing system. I might not ever understand how you do things. It's beyond me. Google has changed that. It changed the way that we search. We no longer have to figure out what folder might this be in? How do I dig for this? I just want the name of the document, and I'll search for it and I'll find it. And even if I don't know the name of the document, if I do a search, it'll search for the words in the document. And that's kind of neat. Or I can search for when was it created. It's something last month. It was a slideshow and it had the word Google in it. So I type that into the search thing and it changes everything. I no longer have to figure out, where did I leave that? Where did I file that? It made sense at the time, but now a month later things have happened and it no longer makes sense. So number one, use the search, trust the search, figure out how to do the search, and leave the filing to people who have to work really closely together in order to figure things out. All right, so go back to my personal version. In addition to the drive, there are all my documents in it. Here's the computers that I've hooked up to it, none of them right now. Things that are shared with me. Let me go back to my work one with that, might be better. So things that other people have shared with me, this is also difficult because we never really know. Do you remember sending email documents to each other with Word documents in it? You'd have like minutes from a meeting and everybody on the meeting committee would get a Word document. And if it was a paper that you were working on together, you'd have, and you sent it out, 9 people would make comments and 9 papers would come back. And you would have to go sit down and say, all right, what does this one say? And then you'd move it over to your document and you'd change it. And then you'd have to integrate the next person's and the next person's. And oh, the third person lost their document on their computer somewhere. So they wrote comments and they're gone forever. They don't want to do it again. It was just a nightmare. Google Docs lets you keep all of that. And they show up automatically and right away at the same time. And you know who wrote each one of the different comments and suggestions. And that's amazing. You don't have to worry about losing things anymore. Paper documents? I never take paper documents anymore. I'll take a picture of it and put it in my Google Drive, and then I can find it. And that's changed everything. If I put it in my bag, it gets crushed. And it ends up in the bottom with 5 other papers that get all smushed up, and then coffee gets spilled on them, or they get wet from the rain or something. So they almost always get destroyed now. I can quickly look and see, what do these look like? Here's my icon view. So if I have big things, I can actually say, oh, here's a robots document, and this is a Google form, and here's another lab presentation. So it's kind of, it's a nice way to sort of sort through things. In addition to the regular search, you've got, I can search by, I only want to find presentations, owned by somebody, including in the trash if I accidentally trashed one. And it's kind of an amazing thing. But again, the big thing is, up here in the corner, that's where you switch back and forth. So those of you who raised your hand when you said that you had personal Google accounts, you need to pay attention to this if you're going to use them, because it's very easy to be like, where is that? And then you forget that you're logged into this account or the other account. If you only have one listed right now, add account is really easy. It lets you type in what your email address is. You can click on it. Google now does this really, I think, very cool safety thing where it'll say, unlock your Samsung Galaxy 9, and it says, you're trying to sign in from a computer. At first I thought this was really annoying, but if you look at the statistics of cybersecurity and the amount of hackers out there, this is a really great way to say, okay, yes, I'm trying to sign in, and then oftentimes it says, pick a number, but because I was already signed into this one, it doesn't do that. So it double checks to make sure that you are the one who is getting into that. And that's kind of a nice way. If Google ever gets hacked, we're all done for. But, and they will. I'm sure they will at some point. All right, so that's Google Drive. Oh, from Google Drive. The reason that I think that it's really neat to be able to start here is because right next to my picture up there in the top corner, I have this Google Apps thing. So from here, I can get to all of the other Google Apps that I have accessible. And it's not just these that are listed, but there are more. And if I want to put Google Translate, for example, up, I can just drag it up, and then it'll show up in my top picture here. So more often than not, if I need to get to a weird Google app, that's how I get to it. Yes? The question was, how are these synced together with what's on the desktop? And how do I keep track of what's here and what's here? And we really are skipping out a lot, aren't we? Oh, well, we move on, we march on. It's a great question, and the fun thing about the ecosystem is that it syncs automatically. So in the past, that Word document that we just got on the email here, oftentimes if it were on the email here, it would not download to your computer, and you'd be like, where is it? Is it on my computer? And you'd go to your computer and you'd search, and it's not in the email there. And you go to your phone and you search, and maybe it's there, but maybe it's on your tablet if you have 3 devices. And so that's really complicated. Because of Google's syncing back and forth to each other, they don't actually send the files to each other. They just send links to the files to each other, unless you have offline turned on. But even if you do, it'll just copy, it'll make a copy of the same thing on all of them. So any changes that I make on this device here will automatically show up there on the same file. And that's slides, that's photos. Anytime I take a picture here, it automatically loads up to there. And that's kind of a neat way to keep track of those things. And that's the best thing about it. I can also go to, if you'd let me borrow your device, which I'm not asking you to do, but if your device, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, I can log into my account, and I would be able to see the same documents and the same changes that I made there as well. So it's changed a lot of that document shuffling.
Same with an iPad, it would go automatically.
Same with an iPad. As soon as you had that iPad hooked up to the Wi-Fi, the changes start to back up. So if I have a photograph, for example, and I'm up in the woods and I take a picture and I don't have Wi-Fi, I've got this set right now so that it doesn't use my data every month to upload these things. So I have to wait for it to go to Wi-Fi, a place that has Wi-Fi, before it'll automatically do that. So sometimes it's not there right away, but as soon as I get to Wi-Fi, it is. And that saves data.
Is this a good time for a break?
Yeah, this is actually a good time for a break. And we'll talk about things a little bit more, and I imagine I'll get a new microphone. I want a quick check to make sure, see if there's any new information on there. It's my Google Tools app. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. back to 100%. And we've got 2 audience questions that were put in there. Good job. I'm going to talk about this Google Apps, Google Doc here as well. So we talked about if you've used a word processor, it looks very familiar, right? You have the toolbar across the top. You've got your bold and your italicized and your underline and things like that. You can change the color of your font. You can change the highlighting over the font. I didn't even move my head that time. All right. Well, we'll keep on working. There are a couple of other things. Up in the top corner over here, you can see who all is on. And I can see that Kathy is logged in right now. I have this set up right now for sharing so that anybody with the link, and that way I don't have to know who all of you are and send individual invitations. That's great for a public document like this. If I were doing a more private document, I would find out who you are and what your Gmail account is or what your other account is, and I would send it to that and share it with that. And I've got it right now so that anybody with the link can edit. I can also have it set so that anybody with the link can comment. So you can't change any of the information, but you can highlight a word and on the right-hand side say, I don't understand what's going on here. I use this in my syllabus right now at the university so that if students have a question about an assignment, I know exactly what assignment they're talking about and where in the instructions that they are stuck on it. Everybody else in the classroom can also see that, so instead of sending me an email, and then I have to answer the email for that person, and then I get another email from somebody else, and I have to answer that email, and then I get another email. It all happens right here, and everybody sees it, and I can answer it right there, and I can change it and fix it, because obviously my assignment was not very clearly stated. I can also set it up so that only the people at the UW-Madison, so only people with wisc.edu ID can access that. So if it were a class document, for example, a sign-up sheet for presentations, and I didn't want people going in and erasing other people's names and putting their names in on place because they wanted to go right next to their buddy, that has happened in my class. I can stop that from happening. So they can edit it, they can link it, they can review it. What I typically do is I say anybody with the link can access it. And that way, if you're on Google and you do a search for UWRA, Google Tools for UW Retirement Association, you will not find this document. You need to have that link sent to you or turned into a bit.ly address, that yellow link there, or something. You need to know what it is in order to type it in order to click on it to get it. Otherwise, it's basically a private document. So that makes things kind of amazing for me. The other thing that's kind of fun, somebody said, how do I keep people from sharing it? Well, first of all, don't share it with them. Sharing is kind of a funny thing right now on the internet, right? Because if anybody has a visual of what you are sharing with them, they can take a screenshot of it and copy it and share it out with somebody else. And that changes the way that we have to deal with intellectual property. Even if, and some of the photo sharing sites have this, where you cannot click and save the image, or you can't even take a screenshot of the image. I don't know how they do that, but it's pretty cool. But they aren't stopping me from taking a picture of it with my device. So sharing anything digitally opens up the opportunity for people to take that and share it out somewhere else. So that's a thing to be aware of. That said, if somebody goes in here and they change things, under File, I can go to Version History. And if you remember, back in the Word document, we had draft number 1, draft number 2, draft, or final version, and then really final version, and definitely the final version, don't change this, and the ones that come after that, and the naming conventions were always off. In this, you only have one version, but within that, you can see all of the different versions, who's made changes to it, and this is even at a big level. I can click down on that little expansion button, and I can see exactly when Kathy is making the changes. And let's go back down to the early change, and I go down to the bottom where she's making the changes. I can see what changes she's made. There, she's added this. And so I can go back in and I can say, I want to go back to before she made changes, so I want to go back to this version. And I can click up here on the blue button and I can restore that version. So if somebody really messes up my beautiful document, I can get rid of everything that they've done and it's all there and it's all safe. So I often don't have a problem sharing out my documents because I know that my documents are kind of safe. All right, I'm not going to restore anything yet. Otherwise, so this is what it looks like on the laptop. But we also have these devices and we have the tablets. And there is an app on the App Store, the Google App Store, Google Play, that you can download to your phone, the Google Drive. And it feels a lot like this, except they change it to a different format because it's on a different screen. This screen is designed for this size screen, and the app for the iPad is designed for Apple's environment, so it's a little bit smaller. The buttons are a little bit in different places sometimes. If you want to learn how to do something on multiple platforms, I recommend starting off with the browser version because there's a lot of space and usually everything is available there. They then move it to the iPhone, the Android or iPhone version of it. And things are different, and you've got to dig around a little bit farther. And most of the things are the same. For a lot of apps, what's available in the web browser will be sort of the deluxe version, and then what's available on your app, on your phone, might be a stripped down version. So you can't do quite as many things. Or to add images is a little bit different. Or all of these things are a little bit different depending on the device. They're still doable for the most part, but you just have to try it. And I guess that would be my second big advice for trying these things out. I remember when we first met and talked about this, I had showed folks the Google Doc, and they're like, how do you add a new row in a table on an iPad? And I was like, I don't know. I've never tried that. I've just always done it on the browser. We figured out how to do that, I think. I think we did. But you can do it, I know. It just might take some thinking and some figuring out on your own. Oh, I'm going to show you my favorite thing with Google Docs. This is not anything special, but I love it. I can take a picture. I'm going to go over to here. I'm going to go steal a picture of, oh, here we go. Steal a picture of that. Take a screenshot of that. This part right here. All right. And it clicked on me. And now I go back into my tools thing. And I'm going to put it right where I want it, right here. After slides here. And I'm going to paste it in place. I'll do it the long form. Edit, paste, and there is my picture. I didn't have to upload a picture, find it on my desktop, all of that stuff that I never am able to do, because did I save this in the right format? Anything like, I don't have to worry about that. I just took a screenshot of whatever I found on the internet, and I pasted it in place, and I can resize it however size I want, whatever size I want. I can make the text wrap around it. It lets me do some pretty basic but pretty decent desktop editing. So if I were telling a story of the trip that I took up north, with my dog just ate 5 pounds of cheese in the van. I've got a picture of him looking sad and guilty. I can, talk about that and have a picture of him looking sad and guilty on it. And then I can go on and talk about the land and how the lake is still frozen, and there's a picture of the land, and we visited a friend's gazebo, and here's a picture of the gazebo. And it's very easy to do these things now because all I have to do is open up my Google Photos, copy, paste it into here. It's awesome. But I don't want that, so we'll undo that. All right. Any questions about Google Docs? And again, just like, well, not just like, in Google Drive, I can get to it right here. So that little square grid up there, if I want to get to Google Docs, I can do it that way. If I want to get to Google Slides, I can do it that way. We could talk about slides right now. There are my Google Slides. I've got quite a few of them. They're organized by icon right now. Let me go back to my presentation. It's very easy for me to go off on tangents, so help me stay focused. We have a question here and a question here, and I'm going to repeat those questions. Yes?
Question of using Microsoft Docs for editing.
Yeah.
And Google, competitor, which should a person better gravitate to?
All right, the question was Microsoft Word, Google Docs, and Microsoft Word now has an online version, so they, in some ways, catching up with what Google Docs does. Are they compatible? Mostly. And in my in my Google Doc right now, I can go to File. I need my glasses on. I can download. Where is it? Farther up, thank you. Download as. There are all of my options. And it does a really good job. Microsoft and Google have recognized that this proprietary stuff doesn't help the user. And so they are working closer and closer to try to say, if you start off in Microsoft Word, you can open it up in Google. If you start off in Google, you can open it up in Microsoft Word. Because they're both word processors, they'll look sort of similar. Microsoft has the bar or the ribbon that goes across, so some things are a little bit different, but if you figure one out, you could figure the other one out. I no longer, on my university computer, I no longer have Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office, other than the email program. I don't use Microsoft. And I get along fine. Yes? All right, the question is, if I create something on Google, is it accessible to people both on PCs, Windows, and also onto the Apple computer people? And the answer is yes. Yes. The answer is yes, it is available on both, because it's done in the browser. It's not done on your Word application on your desktop. Or in Apple, it's not done on the Pages, Apple Pages. You can, as a user, take those and do just as I'm doing right here, download as Microsoft Word, and Microsoft Word will open it up and be able to edit it. But you've made edits there that are no longer part of the collaborative document. You have your own separate version of the document. And so whatever changes you make, nobody else who's being shared with can see those. So you can do it, and a lot of people will do this and they'll save it as a PDF, because PDFs are very durable products. You can have a PDF and download it on all the devices and it'll look really good most of the time. It's rare now that PDFs formatting gets messed up, But Microsoft Word formatting gets messed up. Google Doc formatting, if you open it up in a different version, it might get messed up. So I hope that answers your question. There's one over here. Got it. The question is that can you modify PDFs? If I take a picture of a PDF, and I had mentioned earlier that I no longer take paper copies, I just take a picture of the paper copy and I keep that. Those are not modifiable. I can upload it to Google Documents. Google will try to change it or to make a Google version of it. There's a weird thing with like double T's. If you have two T's in a row, it always messes that up for some reason when it changes from PDF. There are a lot of little weird intricacies that it still does not do a good job of reading that text. Because basically what it's doing is optical character recognition. So it has to take that picture, and it does the best job that it can. But there are always mistakes that you have to go in and fix. So if possible, get the digital version rather than a photograph of it. And I think there was one more question behind. No? Okay, the question over here. In PDF files, there are two ways to save those files. The question is, how do I save out a snippet of that? Oftentimes, in PDF files, they are saved now not just as an image. And when I first started graduate school, we would get readings, and they were basically just Xerox copies of terrible, hard-to-read Xerox copies of articles or books or things like that. And those were just pictures. You couldn't do anything with those. More modern PDFs, they now do the optical character recognition. So in almost all PDFs created now, you can actually highlight, and if it's a word, you can highlight that, and you can just copy and paste it into that, and it should work very well. So if you just want a piece of it, that's good. When it comes to capturing the formatting of it and being able to make substantive changes, that gets a lot harder. I imagine that Google will someday be able to do that, but they're not there yet. Was there another question back here? Yes? The question is, has Word Online been improved because experiences in the past have been terrible? Essentially, did I capture the gist of it? How many of you remember Google Documents when it first came out? All right. Was that a beautiful piece of software then? No, it was not. Yes, I see the big down thumb. I think that Word is going to get better. Try it again with a document you don't need right now, or on a low stakes testing. Give it a try and see what it's like. My experience with Word Online, I don't use it right now because of similar experiences with that you have. It's an option in our learning management system, and there are some instructors that are like, oh, I like using Word, I want to use all of my Word files and such. And they try it, but it's often a frustrating experience, and so I currently discourage it. But I'm optimistic. I think they're going to get better at it because that's the way these things tend to go. I saw another question here. The question is, Google Sheets. What is Google Sheets like, and is it comparable to Excel? And I will tell you that I no longer use Excel. I was never really good at it, so it didn't work with the part of the brain that I like to use. But I do use Google Sheets all the time, and you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. So let me demo. If you like spreadsheets, I'll show you some of the things that I've done here. Again, in my Google Drive here, in the list view, I'm just going to do a type. I'm going to search for spreadsheets. And again, this is my Wisconsin, wisc.edu thing. So I'm going to show you some data about the active teaching lab. Let me go to ATL attendance. So it's an online spreadsheet. It is, for some reason right now, this is really, I've never seen this gray space at the bottom before. So here I'm about to tell you how great it is, and now there's this thing that I don't understand. So, but it's a spreadsheet, and you can add charts and such to it. Oh, there, it's fixed. I had to go to a different sheet. Different sheet on the bottom of all these different sheets, tracking different elements of attendance over the years. There's my attendance graphs. I don't know how complex Excel graphs can get, but I'm really proud of being able to track both the numbers of the labs, or number of people that I've had so far on that top line, and then the average, what is it, weekly? I have 2 labs a week, so right now we're getting almost 30 people a week, 15 people per lab on average. Like, that's kind of a neat piece of information that I can share with people to say, hey, look at me, I do a good job. Pat me back, keep me hired. Yes. The question is, can you import Excel into this? And the answer is yes, you can import. And you can also, again, download from this back into Excel. So I'm working with a project assistant who is a data analyst, and she prefers Excel, not Excel Online, but the app, the desktop app. And she takes this out of Google Sheets, brings it into her Excel product, makes her changes, imports it back up into here, and she reports to me that it works really well. So that might work better than Microsoft Word. Okay. This is kind of neat. And the ability then to share this with certain people and not with other people, and let some people comment on it and other people edit it and other people just view it, is a fun way to sort of control the documents that we have. I want to talk about another advantage of, let me go, here's my personal one. I'm going to go back to my whisk.edu up here. And over on the left side over here, you can see there's my drive, and then there's team drives. I want to mention team drives just really briefly. You'll notice that on my personal account, I just moved over to that, I know I don't have team drive. There is no team drive under there. So back to the functionality of, is UW-Madison's Whisk the same functionality-wise as your personal account? Here's an advantage for the team drive. If you are part of an organization of whisk.edu people for the most part, use a team drive. Here's what's happening at the university. We have people who retire, and they take all of their files with them for the courses that they had, or we have teaching assistants who create files, and then they go off and they graduate and they get jobs, and they leave, and the next semester we want to teach a course, but the TA has left, or the professor retired, or something happened there, and we no longer have access to them. What do? Do we go track down the TA at their new university and say, hey, all of those files, can you export them as Word files and send them to us in a big email? Or are they gone forever? Do we have to recreate them? With team drives, you can create drives that are shared by people on that team. And if one of the person on the team, and all of the documents created here, stored on here, are owned by everybody on the team. If one person leaves, the documents are owned by everybody on the team, except for the one person. If somebody new comes along, we can add them onto it, and the documents are still owned by everybody on the team, plus the new person. So it's a really great way to use a sturdy file system for a dynamic group of people who are coming and going. With your personal account, you can't do that. You can share it with them, but the ownership is still yours. And if you leave, that no longer belongs to other people. They can access it because it's shared, but if you're not part of that group anymore, you've got this, and you're like, oh, I want to clean out my files. If you accidentally delete that file because you're not involved anymore, you haven't just deleted it for yourself, you've deleted it for all of the people that have been relying on that file as well. So this is a really great solution to that problem. Question in the back. So the question is, do they all have to have a WIS.edu in order to use team drives? The answer is yes. So it is not, however, in order to be in the team, you have to be part of the WIS.edu person. You can share those files just as we've shared with people outside of the team. But this is a special feature of the Enterprise Edition, so yes, you have to be part of the team to be part of that core group. Good, another question here. The question is, how do I import documents that I already have into my file, my Google Drive system? And the answer is, right up here in the corner it says new, file upload. And when you go to upload that, you can go find any file on your computer. Now the beautiful thing about this is just about any file can be stored on Google Docs, Google Drive. Video files, photographs, documents, Word documents. The Apple file system, the Keynote documents, you can move those over there, but they won't open up in Google. So a Pages document, for example, or an Apple Keynote document, which is their slide program, those will download if you click on them. And so what I have to do right now, and what I did with the slides that I used today, is Google Slides is cool, but it's not as cool as Apple Keynote is, in my opinion. So I create all of my slides in Apple Keynote. And then I have to export from Apple Keynote to PowerPoint. And then I take the PowerPoint and I upload it here. It's not perfect, but I love the control of Keynote, so I go through that extra hassle. And your second question?
Is there a help button somewhere in the
Oh,
program?
awesome. Let's talk about help. Thank you. I love how these questions are just leading me. You're helping me move forward is what you're doing. That's a good. Oh, I wanted to talk about that. Not there. And photos, right. All right. So, again, pieces of advice. Number one, learn one or two of the Google apps. I recommend starting it on your computer and then finding out what's the same and what's different on your device, whether it's an iPad or iPhone or Android device or Android tablet. And number three, ask others. Social learning. Remember, because we are connected with other people, it's easy to do this now. Google famously does not have, it does, but it's not any good. See the big question mark up there? It's got the little help button. They've got it, but it's sort of useless. YouTube is a great way to get help. And the people sitting next to you who might be able to see something that you don't see, and I don't mean like, oh, there's that. Did you click on the big question mark? But they might have insight. They might have had the same question that you had. So talking to each other about how do I do these things, this is a huge thing. People love to be helpful because if you ask for help, it shows that you are valued, that you are valuing that person. So we all want to be valued. So yes, ask for help. And it'll be personalized then. It won't just be a soulless help document created by a Google automaton. Ottoman, yeah. So that's that. Yes, Googling it, and when you Google it, you will get the Google Help article, and you get 3 videos, not by Google, but by different people. And those videos, you'll find the 30-second quick answer, you'll find the 5-minute really detailed answer, and then you'll find a 35-minute rant on all of the things about all of the very details that you'd never even wanted to care about, but somebody really feels like this is important. So they're entertaining. But the best thing is you can skip through them, or you can stop it, figure it out, hit play again, figure it out, rewind, check it over again. This is how YouTube has changed everything. The ability to say, wait, rewind. And if you ask somebody to wait, rewind, they'll do that. The second time, they might do it. The third time, they're starting to look at you like, oh, come on. Don't you get this yet? But the videos, they don't care. They want you to rewind them and watch them over. All right. Explore. So this is part of the seeing things. All of these, there are little clues all over all of these windows that you can see. That little down triangle, whenever you see that, click on it, because that's showing you more information. The 3 dots, that's called a kebab, like a shish kebab. Who knew? They're amazing. The profile button, of course, gives you some information. And then the bottom, the lines across the bottom, that's the hamburger. You see that up at the top of a different thing. So all of those lead to more information that'll give you clues to help you do the things that you want to do. And we can see examples of this all over the place. In our Google Drive, all over the place. And now here they're not anywhere. Well, there's your arrow. That's the only one I can see. Oh, there's the arrow. Click on it, you get more information. All right, I want to show off Google Keep as well, and Google Photos. So, Google Photos, again, is, I think, an amazing thing because it automatically syncs from what I take on my phone. I get home, all of my folders or photos are automatically uploaded. I can go into mine. And I see again that I'm in my personal one because my other one isn't all that great. There are my photos. And here again, the search bar. Remember, forget about file structure, use search. Google's artificial intelligence lets you do a lot of stuff. Here's my past searches. I can search by face, so I want all of the ones that have pictures of me in them. They'll all show up, I guess. There we are. And I want all the ones of my dog. There's a bunch of pictures of my dog. And I know, aw, that's cute. But I want all the ones of, how about a cat? I don't have any files called cat, labeled cat, but Google AI recognizes, well, there's a cat there, but you can see it's not perfect yet because there's pictures of my dog that it thinks, well, that's got ears and a tail, that must be a cat or close. But it also does things like, this is the kind of cat food that I was feeding our cat, and it was able to recognize, well, I don't know if it recognizes the cat here, or if it recognizes the cat on it uses the optical character recognition though, so if I did take a picture of a document, and I searched for the word in the document, if it can read that, it'll show up in my results. If this is a cat on it, this paper would show up in my results. The Google search is kind of amazing in this respect. And again, each of these, let me get out of my search mode here. I can upload my own individual ones if I have them from somewhere else. I can create photo books on the side here. I can share it with other people. They have this thing called Google Assistant that lets you look back on your day 3 years ago. It takes pictures and it stylizes them. 9 years ago, it reminds me to move things off of my mobile phone. All kinds of, fun stuff that it'll go back. I can create my own animations, collages, movies, photo books, etc., and buy those photo books if I wanted to, of course, because Google is in it for the money. I can create albums. So if I want to create, I can take all of the pictures of my cat and put them in an album called Cat, for example, and it's usually just a drag and drop thing. So it's kind of a fun thing that way. Any other questions about Google Photos? And this is really a quick overview. Yes? Labeling, thank you, that's a good question. In any picture, you see up in the top corner there, there's another opportunity to share just this picture. There are controls to fix the picture. So it'll let me do an automatic adjustment to it, or if I click on it again, I can go back in and I can make it pop more. I can change the lightness and the darkness and the color. And I can even go in farther because I clicked on that down arrow. And now I've got really close control if I want to, have a lovely vignette or all that sort of stuff. There is, of course, I'm still not answering your question, which was how do I edit and make changes to the description, right? There's another one. I can straighten my photos, recrop them, change the angle. So if I took a crooked landscape, I can make that perfect. Say that I'm done with it. Under that kebab, you all saw that, the kebab, the 3 dots? Yes? I'll save a copy of it. Eyes for information, another button to click on. I can add a description. These is of the local newspaper up north. So now, as soon as I've added that, it'll show up in search. If I search for newspapers, that'll show up. I think it would have automatically because it recognizes what newspapers are. So there's a lot of fun information. Again, all of the explorations that one might want to do. All right, so the question is between Apple Photos and iPhone Photos, Apple Photos and Android Photos, or Apple Photos. I've got instructions on this sheet. It's not something I can demonstrate here. It's fairly easy according to what I've read. Yeah, I'm optimistic about it. You should try it. Yes. Can you edit photos after you've moved them? Yes. You can make copies and you can change those copies as much as you want. You can totally ruin them, and that's okay because the other version that you haven't messed around with will be there. Hang on, there's a question over here. Lovely question. Thank you for reminding me to say that. Yes. 2 things. Google, even on your personal accounts, gives you unlimited storage for specific size photos. So they're not the optimal, full-size, super high-res photos. And the photos that are being taken on these are super high-res sometimes. They're way more high-resolution than we need them to be. Google will give you unlimited amount of a smaller version of that is still great for printing. But on the UW-Madison version, it's unlimited storage space. So whisk.edu if you use that account.
You're probably going to have to pay the storage.
On your personal account, if you want the super high resolution versions, you have to pay for them.
But if you don't care,
If you don't care, it's unlimited.
just a general Gmail account will do it?
Yep.
Okay, for somebody who's not.
I'm not asking the questions. The question is it unlimited? Yes. Any size? No, just a smaller version of it. And otherwise, with your personal account, you can buy more space for that. Question over here. The question is about transferring from personal to your whisk.edu. And this is a much bigger question than just photos, but the answer is currently you can drag them. If you have 2 windows open, one with your personal and one with your Whisk email account, you can drag them over. Here's the thing that is terrible. You cannot move folders over. Oh wait, no, I'm thinking about Team Drive. I take that back. Yes, you can just move them over or download. I'm going to take that back. It's not drag and drop. I don't know. I'm going to say I don't know. I think you might have to download them to your computer and then re-upload them. You can share, yes, any folder in the question is, can you share them? And you can share them or link them so that your personal account also has access to the ones on your Whisk account or vice versa. And then you had a question? The question is, can I get rid of duplicates? The answer is yes. In any of these photos, I can click on it. Oh, I don't want to. I can click in the top corner of it. You see where that check mark is showing up? And I want to get rid of that one, and I want to get rid of that one. I don't want to get rid of that one. I'll just get rid of this one. And then, boom, up here in the top corner, there's a trash can. It says, and this is, I love this. I didn't just automatically blow up Pittsburgh. It says, are you sure you want to automatically blow up Pittsburgh? Yes, I want to get rid of this from my Google account, Google Drive, synced devices. So I hit delete, and it's not just gone there. It's going to go away on this as well. So it's kind of a nice way to get rid of that. Yeah, let's move that to the trash. Wait, there's one more thing I was going to say about that. There are additional plugins that you can do this in bulk. Duplicate Annihilator is one that comes to mind. That you'll have to Google for more information. But sometimes there are so many individual folders or photos that you want to get rid of that clicking on each one individually would take all day or all year. There are applications out there that will do that for you. Say, hey, you've got all of these versions. Do you want to get rid of them? And you can say yes. Question over there. The question is, can I upload the photos that I have in some other program or on my computer and categorize them by date and topic? The answer is yes. Again, by upload here, I can find a whole folder of photos if I wanted to find photos. They would all be uploaded according to one date. If you have several dates, what I would recommend is uploading them by those dates. So one folder for last week, another folder for 2 weeks ago, if you want to separate them that way. In Google Photo, you can change under the information again. You can change the date here under details. So up here, April 9th. So if you have an old photo and it comes in and it says, this is from today, you can say, no, this is actually a picture of me when I was 3 years old, so I want to change it back to April or Christmas Eve on whenever that year was. So yes, you can do that. Question? I used Duplicate Annihilate. The question was, is there a favorite program for annihilating duplicates? And there's one called Duplicate Annihilator, and there's another one called Gemini. I want to show you one more thing before I leave, and this is maybe my favorite thing, so I'm going to end with it. Google Keep. All right, so first of all of the Google things, they're easy to find just by typing them in the browser. If I want to go to Keep, the Google Keep app, I type in keep.google.edu or .com, calendar.google, contacts.google, chat.google, sites.google. It's simple. I don't need HTTP. I don't need www. It's so nice. But I want to go to Google Keep. Google Keep is the program that my wife and I use the most. And the way that we use it the most is our grocery list. So this is the same thing that's on my phone. And if I buy something, I'm at a grocery store and I just stopped by and I picked up 3 pounds of stew beef, I just click it off and it shows off, it's gone off the list. She might be out at the grocery store at the same time, about to pick up stew meat, And instead of having 6 pounds of stew meat that we have to deal with, she sees, oh, the stew meat is gone. It's gone. I don't have to buy it. That's great. I can add stuff to it just by adding something. Oh, let's see, dog food. My dog, I'll give my dog food. And it gives me some choices. I don't care. I just want dog food. I can also, look at that, I have dog food down here in the list that I got last week. At any point, I can just say, oh, I need that again. I'm going to uncheck it. There it's back. I need some sriracha sauce. Uncheck it. It shows up on the list again. This is great. If you have a bottle of wine that you really like and you're like, oh, I want to make sure I get that again, take a picture of the label. It'll show up on Keep the next time you're at the wine store. You can pull it up and be like, what was that Cabernet that I really liked? There it is. This is amazing. This is worth the price of admission. So, this is called Google Keep. Like, I'm going to keep all of these things in a list. And I've got it for Menards and for, Home Depot and things like that. Question? The question is, thank you. If you use this for a list of to-do things, weekly tasks, daily tasks, you don't have to keep recreating the list, because as soon as you check it off, it goes to the bottom. But at the end of the week, you can just say, oh, I need to buy tomato paste again. I need to mop the floor again. I need to do whatever again. And boom, it's back up there. So it's a great way to keep track of all sorts of things with multiple people. And again, the collaborative element of this is fantastic. Question?
I see your browser is Chrome, is that right?
Yes. Yes. So I use, the question is, she noticed that I'm not using Firefox or Safari, even though I have an Apple computer. I use Chrome. And the reason that I use Chrome is partly because up in that top corner, you see that picture? Right up here, there, that's me. It's linked to my account. All of my passwords are linked up there. That's kind of amazing, because I don't need a list of 8,000 passwords, because Google keeps it, and that's under a special security thing. On the list, I want to show you another thing that they have up here. All of these guys here are extensions, and you can get to extensions and find things under window extensions. And you can, there are all kinds of things. I'm going to show you just this one here. Right? Password Manager. It will keep track of the passwords that you use on your different things. And I don't know if this is a problem for you, but I hate passwords. I know I need them. I love them because they provide security for me, but I cannot keep track of them. It used to be that I could have a list and I was able to keep track. That is no longer the case. All my favorite ones have shown up on this list because, and these are just, my recently used passwords were detected in a data breach. So these data breaches, they report back and they say, oh, all of this information is gone. If that password shows up there, I know I need to change the password. That's super helpful, and it keeps track of things like that. So the Chrome browser has these things built in that let me automatically, I'll get to a site that needs a login, and it'll say, do you want me to log in for you? And I'll be like, yes, please. Or I need a new password. Do you want me to create a really strong password? Yes, create one for me, remember it for me, and then when I come to it, you know that I'm me because I just did this double-factor authentication. It says, I see you want to log in. If this is really you, press whatever button you see on this screen. So that's a level of security that a lot of sites don't have, and I hope it works. We have 4 minutes left, so just a few more questions. One over here. Yeah, what is Google Chrome is the question. Google Chrome is a web browser. Do you remember when we talked about, Firefox you've probably heard of, or Mozilla, Windows Explorer, Internet Explorer. If you're using Windows Internet Explorer, consider switching over to Chrome. A lot of sites that you go to might not work so good under Windows Internet Explorer. Chrome is another browser that lets me have, and I'm very guilty of having multiple tabs. You can see all of these different things that are open across the top here. There's that one and there's that one. I go back and forth, and on some presentations, people will just openly laugh at me because I've got 40 different things open, and I shouldn't. The more tabs that you have open, the slower your computer goes. So that's another thing. There was a question over here, and I think that might be the last one. She heard me say that Photos automatically syncs with Google. Maybe that's not happening with you right yet. It can happen. You just need to, in your phone, I'm doing this right now just so I remember it, I don't tell you the wrong thing. On your phone screen, you will see that there is a hamburger icon and a kebab icon, and under one of them, under the hamburger icon, you will see a settings icon that looks like this gear, and under the settings icon, there will be an opportunity to back up and sync. It's the top one up there. If you click on that, then it'll automatically back up and sync. If you haven't clicked on that, it might not. You will also get the opportunity to say, you want to back up automatically or just when there's Wi-Fi? And to save your data plan monthly fee for your cell phone, I recommend Wi-Fi, using Wi-Fi only. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to let you go 2 minutes early.
Wait a minute.
Because there's a wait a minute.
Before I thank John, I actually want to ask something of you. You all received an evaluation form. Please fill it out because we use those to see how we're doing and to plan future programs. You'll notice a specific question on there about would you want to participate in a classroom simulation using Google Tools. This is what we originally started with, but we thought we should do this program first. What that would mean is you would be a student. You would be taking notes collaboratively, as John spoke about. You would be picking out the appropriate tool at the time. So that's an idea.
You would bring your device, and I could go around and help you and put things on the screen, and I might even invite a colleague or two to come with me and help me do that as well.
Yeah, the other thing is our technology committee has a habit of just kind of after our meetings planning some programs where we sit down with people and just help you move the next step. So if you're interested in using some of these tools and just sitting with our committee members and other volunteers that might come in that day to learn more about actually using the tools hands-on, please make a note on your evaluation for that too. Now the other thing I want to do is thank John. We're going to give him this wonderful umbrella from the UW Retirement Association, and I took it out of the bag because it doesn't look right, does it? Looks kind of upside down or something. So let me show you how this works. It's too cool. There we go. So you actually, okay, can I run this umbrella? Oh, I have to unhook it. Okay, here we go. Look, it's backwards, and John's going to use it in his car, because it doesn't make your car wet. So anyway, there you go, John. You'll remember us.
You open up the door, you stick the umbrella out of the door, not in the car. You do it, and then you walk out.
It says Retirement Association, so he's going to be very cool on campus.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Please hand in your evaluation forms. Give us feedback.
Thank you for the questions and for helping me stay on track, and remember to repeat the questions. I thank you.